Those two technologies, those two fundamental forces of computing are going to reshape the computer industry. The computer industry is now some 60 years old. In a lot of ways, everything that we do today was invented the year after my birth, in 1964. The IBM System 360 introduced central processing units, general purpose computing, the separation of hardware and software through an operating system, multitasking, I/O subsystems, DMA, all kinds of technologies that we use today, architectural compatibility, backwards compatibility, family compatibility, all of the things that we know today about computing largely described in 1964. Of course, the PC revolution democratized computing and put it in the hands and the houses of everybody. And then in 2007, the iPhone introduced mobile computing and put the computer in our pocket. Ever since, everything is connected and running all the time through the mobile cloud. This last 60 years, we saw several, just several, not that many actually, 2 or 3 major technology shifts. 2 or 3 tectonic shifts in computing, where everything changed. And we're about to see that happen again. There are 2 fundamental things that are happening. The first is that the processor, the engine by which the computer industry runs on, the central processing unit, the performance scaling has slowed tremendously. And yet, the amount of computation we have to do is still doubling very quickly, exponentially. If processing requirement, if the data that we need to process continues to scale exponentially, but performance does not, we will experience computation inflation. And in fact, we're seeing that right now as we speak. The amount of data center power that's used all over the world is growing quite substantially. The cost of computing is growing. We are seeing computation inflation. This, of course, cannot continue. The data is going to continue to increase exponentially, and CPU performance scaling will never return. There is a better way. For almost 2 decades now, we've been working on accelerated computing. CUDA augments a CPU, offloads and accelerates the work that a specialized processor can do much, much better. In fact, the performance is so extraordinary that it is very clear now, as CPU scaling has slowed and eventually substantially stopped, we should accelerate everything. I predict that every application that is processing intensive will be accelerated, and surely every data center will be accelerated in the near future. Now, accelerated computing is very sensible. It's very common sense.
So, hey Finxters, what up? In this quick presentation, I want to give you the argument that the age of $1 trillion companies is here. So, $1 trillion in profit. So, if you look at the current profit of the largest companies on Earth, for instance, we have Microsoft with a market cap of $3 trillion, so $3,000 billion. And Apple with roughly 3 trillion as well. Nvidia, we have just seen its CEO Jensen Huang, who bet on this trend of accelerated computing when AI wasn't that popular. It was still popular maybe 10 years ago when he started to bet heavily on AI, but it was not as mainstream as it is today, post-GPT, post-transformer technology. So we see those companies are like the top market cap companies are like roughly $3 trillion companies, which make roughly 100 billion in profit. So all of this presentation will be rough math, but I want to make a first principles-based analysis. I like those kind of big picture analysis of of the tech company landscape. And I will make the argument that the age of $1 trillion profit companies is here. So my argument is like we will see 10x in profit of one or multiple companies, some of those lists, some that actually have not even entered the top 10 yet. Okay, so let's do some rough math to see the profundity of this thesis. First, let's look at Apple. Apple is like the biggest or second biggest company. It depends on the daily fluctuation of the stock price. We see like Apple has roughly 250 million units sold. And we have just seen in the presentation of Jensen Huang that the smartphone was actually a new computing device that has penetrated the whole world, right? So we have billions of smartphone users, like I think roughly 3 billion. We will see some stats later. 3 billion smartphone users in the world. And roughly 250 million of those buy Apple products, right? Mostly iPhones and other units, yeah? So the rough math of the Apple business is they have something on the order of 250 million units sold, and they make roughly $400 per unit. Just think of these numbers. It's very approximate math. But we can see the order of magnitude, right? If you multiply the units sold times the profit per unit, you get 100 billion in profit. And then based on the profit, we determine the market cap, right? Like a PE, something like a 30 PE or so, to get a price earnings ratio to get to the market cap. So this is basically the main driver of the stock price of those tech companies. So for all businesses, we have units sold, we have profit per unit, which gives us the total profit. And the question is, if my thesis is right and we would see $1 trillion companies, $1 trillion profit companies, how can we go from like 0.1 trillion, so 100 billion dollars in profit, to $1 trillion in profit? How is this even possible? For instance, with Apple, can we really sell 1 billion iPhones every year? I mean, given that we have maybe 8 billion people on the earth, so in a couple of decades we may have 10 billion people on the earth, but I mean not 10 billion people. Even if you have 10 billion smartphone users, so every person on the earth has a smartphone, probably not 1 in 10 will buy an iPhone, right? Because the iPhone is too expensive. So the profit per unit, as long as it remains $400 profit, this is not sales price, right? Because they sell it maybe for $800 or so, or $1,000 to make 400 profit per unit. Most people on the planet cannot actually afford this type of cost, right? So therefore, it is very unrealistic to assume that we will see 1 billion iPhones sold every year, right? I mean, 250 million actually doesn't even grow anymore. Apple's units sold actually shrinks over time. So it's not really realistic to assume that Apple will grow this number. But can they 10x the profit per unit? So if you really insist on going to 1 trillion, we cannot actually meaningfully increase the units sold, how can we go from this to $4,000? And in my opinion, it's even also not realistic, right? Because we would have to sell the iPhone for like 5K or so. It's like if we would sell a product for 5K, such a product similar to the iPhone, we would not get 250 million people to buy it. It's just too expensive for most of them, right? So the key takeaway, we need other products to reach this next order of magnitude. Let's have another example. This I'm not so sure of in terms of that Google or Alphabet cannot like 10x it. As we will see later, I will give another computation where I'm actually pretty bullish that they might be able to do it, right? But here with the Google economics, again, rough math, we have roughly 2 trillion, so 2,000 billion searches per year. Now they have like a profit per search is like 3 cents or so. They make a total profit of 75 billion, right? So we multiply the number of searches with the profit per search to get to this number. This is actually the profit Google makes, and of course they don't make everything on searches. This is again rough math, but most of the net income of Google or Alphabet actually comes from search. So how do we go from 0.075 trillion to $1 trillion in profit? So this would be like a 15x. Can we really increase the number of monetized searches by 15x? Think about it. Would you spend 15 times more time in your day to search the web? No, I don't think so. Would you increase can we increase the profit per search by 15x? Difficult, right? Very difficult, because the ad spend with a positive return on investment is a limiting factor here, right? We simply don't have enough companies bidding up the profit per search, the advertisement, cost per click basically by 15x. So it's a free market, right? So it is very difficult to increase the profit per search even by 10%. I don't think they will be able to increase it by 1,500% or something like this, right? So also very difficult. Good, let's have a look. I actually did some very rough math here. If you have I increased the number of units sold on the left by a factor of 10, right? We go from 1 million to 10 trillion or 10,000 billion units sold in a given year. And if you have that many units sold, then I actually multiplied it with the profit per unit so that the total profit would reach 1 trillion. And I just wanted to see where is actually the opportunity. Where can, where do the different companies we currently see, the different successful companies, where do they play? In what ocean, right? For instance, if you have Nvidia. Nvidia sells AI factories. And AI factories, they sell it to other tech companies. And for AI factories, we would see something like a profit per unit in the $1 million range, right? It is possible here. Then, of course, we would have to sell 1 million units to reach 1 trillion in profit. And another example here is Tesla, where we have 100 million units sold, possible, right? This could be the number of cars on the roads also. Possible, but unlikely. It could be also the bot. More likely now, right? And now actually we will see, I will give you a video of Elon Musk where he gives the first principles analysis of how many robots there are.
An actual
or there will be.
Product to market at scale that is useful far faster than anyone else. And assuming that the things I'm saying are true, or at least you can put it, I think they are true. It's just a question of the timing. You start getting into interesting questions of what's the ratio of humans to humanoid robots? I think it might be greater than 1 to 1. Because
okay, so you mean 1 to 1, which means 8 billion humanoids on the planet. Eventually, I also agree. I think we will easily see a 1 to 1 ratio. And at Amazon, for instance, we have a ratio that is even larger than 1 to 1. So we have more robots than humans working at Amazon. And I think this will be just the future for the world, where we have more robots than human. I mean, if you think of science fiction, right? So if you just think 10 years, 20 years ahead, we would see a world where there are more robots than humans walking on the earth, right? It's very, very, very likely future, in my opinion.
You could sort of see a home use for robots, certainly industrial uses for robots, humanoid robots. I think we might exceed a 1-to-1 ratio of humanoid robots to humans. It's not even clear what an economy means at that point. Since an economy is output per person times persons, but if output is much higher and there's no limit on persons, then what's the actual limit on the economy?
So very interesting argument Elon makes here. Okay, so you see, I think this one is much more likely now than the other scenarios we have seen at this point, to sell actually 100 million units in a year. Remember, we might see billions of robots on the planet. And each robot may have like a lifetime of maybe 3-4 years or so. So if we see like 3 billion robots on the planet, which is even half as optimistic as we have seen in this talk, then we would have to sell 1 billion robots every single year. So units sold would be 1 billion, but maybe Tesla only has a 10% market share. So Tesla in this scenario would sell 100 million units in a given year. Now the question is, how much profit would they make? And Elon has already said in another video that they would sell like the robot for 20K or so. It would be very useful. I mean, if they can sell it for 20K, make 10K profit at it, because it's not so complicated to manufacture at scale. It's very lightweight, and you can just scale it up. It's much more difficult and more heavyweight to scale the production of cars and to scale the production of robots. And so I think, I mean, if we sell robots for 30K the piece, it will actually do more labor than a worker, right? And you would have to pay a worker 50K per year or so in our in the industrial nations. Sometimes 50K, sometimes 100K per year to work 8 hours a day, right? But the robot could work longer, more efficiently, and much cheaper. So if we would sell the robot for 20-30K, they would make 10K profit per unit sold, and it would still create huge economic value for the buyer of the robot, because they can deploy it and letting them do some useful work. So we are getting into much more realistic scenarios. And remember, I mean, we might sell 50 million electric autonomous cars like robo-taxis and 50 million bots. So this is definitely a more realistic scenario in my opinion. Now we have Apple here. Apple tries to sell like $1,000 products at a time, right? So they sell these virtual reality glasses, the Apple Vision Pro. They sell iPhones, and like they could make like roughly order of magnitude $1,000 per product. They would need to sell 1 billion of those products, which I think it's not so realistic. Possible, not so realistic then maybe selling only 100 million robots. I think the sweet spot is somewhere here, selling 100 million robots or cars or robotaxis, robots or so humanoid robots or robotaxis for 10K a unit in profit, which then would make this a $1 trillion profit company. Then of course, I mean, we have like Google and Meta. They play here in this yellow space right here. They make like profit per unit, it's like 10 cents or so. So they have, which is like the ad spend, maybe the what they make per impression or so. And they might be able to make 10 trillion impressions or something, right? But even if they now monetize it with only 10 cents per impression, they would make 1 trillion. I think this is now much more difficult. And here I actually created another chart where I have, in this chart, I give like on the y-axis the profit per unit as a log price, right? Something like this. So each time we have x going from bottom to top, for each step on the y-axis, and on the x-axis we have like a 10x. So if we 10 times the number of units, we could reduce the profit per unit by a factor of 10 to remain at this $1 trillion line, right? So all the companies on this line might be the $1 trillion profit per year companies. And these are just like, there's some probability that each of those companies accomplishes this. And the probability obviously is not 100% and it's not 0%. For all of them, it's possible. We have seen like the rough math how it would be possible. But for some of them, it's more likely than for others. And for instance, I think Nvidia selling 1 million AI factories, I could imagine that. Even more likely, Tesla selling like 50 million Optimus and 50 million robotaxis. I think it would be even more likely for this to happen. Like Apple selling 1 billion iPhones or something in this order, more difficult, because 1 billion people usually don't spend $1,000 per year on something, right? It's very difficult. It's too many people. too many people needing to purchase a high-ticket product. Then again, I mean, we might see something like this, that we have a low profit per unit, but just a massive scale. Could be something like advertisement, could be something like profit per token or something, right? If you have an API like the ChatGPT or large language models, actually partially owned by Microsoft, they might make a small fraction of some AI model, very small profit per API request, and then we have huge amounts of API requests to actually reach a $1 trillion in profit scenario. Good, so here is the example scenario for Tesla. So we have 100 million humanoids. I already did the math, $10,000 per profit per unit. Really very realistic. Probably it will be much more. Total profit would be 1 trillion. This is possible, right? If we have 10 trillion humanoid bots on the earth, and we need to exchange bots like every 4 years, so they have a lifetime of 4 years, we would have to sell 2.5 billion humanoids every single year. And Tesla, being the largest player in the robotics space currently, might sell like even more than 100 million humanoids in this scenario. So if you have 2.5 billion robots sold every single year, we might see 10%, 20%, 30% market share of Tesla, right? Which would be like 700 million humanoids or so sold per year. So 100 million, I think it's still conservative. If you believe in this future, I think it's a conservative estimation. It could be 10x that. There's also another model I have in mind. So if you have, say, 10 billion robots on the earth, maybe 1 billion of them are produced by Tesla. Now we have 1 billion robots, and maybe you don't buy them in terms of like a purchasing price for 20K or so. Maybe you lease them. So if you would lease them, and we have 1 billion robots on the earth, and you lease them for $1,000 a year, so it's like almost a subscription, like $100 per month. Profit per unit, so maybe it would have to cost $150 per month or so to cover the expenses. So something like on those lines, you would pay $150, $200 per month to get the Optimus work for you the whole month, right? It would be a very cheap employee for you, very efficient. It would be a no-brainer for most companies. So to just rent the Optimus for $200 per month, Tesla makes $100 per month in profit, which would profit then $1.2K per year, and we have 1 billion of those, so we have 1 billion times $1,000 per year. It's also $1 trillion. So I think there are many scenarios with humanoid robots product that could get us there. Similarly, for Nvidia, there are multiple scenarios. Now, I have already covered the scenario where Nvidia sells, say, 1 million AI factories for $1 million each, which would give us $1 trillion in profit. Or actually, they wouldn't sell it for $1 million; they would sell it maybe for $2 million and make a 50% net margin, as they do. Possible, not so likely, because you would have to sell like 1 million data centers, AI factories. So this would really mean that the whole world would be completely. So we would have to integrate AI into anything and everything. And I think this will be actually the case. This is actually my opinion that this scenario will happen, but I'm less confident of this scenario than just having like 100 million humanoid bots. In this scenario, in this alternative way of looking at Nvidia, you could say they sell 1 billion GPUs, right? And they sell the GPUs because this is the smallest unit they actually sell. They do accelerated computing. They sell each GPU for $2,000 or so, make 1,000 in profit. This would actually reach a total profit of 1 trillion. And I think it's realistic to assume 1 billion GPUs because we will see lots and lots of edge computing. So of the 8 billion people on Earth, I think if we have 8 billion people on Earth, we will see 1 billion GPUs. We would have to see 1 billion GPUs. We will see GPUs in each self-driving car. We see GPUs in computers, right? In most computers. So everybody has a computer, right? We might see GPUs in the smartphone for generative AI, so we generate the content dynamically on the edge, on the device of the person consuming it, right? So this device would have to have a GPU, right? So I could see this scenario happening where they just sell 1 billion GPUs, even possibly 10 billion GPUs if we become aware that we need inference hardware, i.e. GPUs on each humanoid bot, and we have 10 billion humanoid bots, right? In this scenario, if you have a humanoid bot for every person on the earth, then we have 8 billion humanoid bots. So in this case, we would sell more than 1 billion GPUs. And GPUs is like the price of 1.5K or so per GPU, or 2K per GPU is possible. If maybe not so likely, maybe it is cheaper. But I mean, this scenario, I think it's also in the realm of possibility. Then my third scenario that I searched, like how would it be possible for Alphabet or Google to actually pull it off? And I think they might, because of this concept I have already talked about in another YouTube video on the Finxter channel, of attention hours. So Google basically has 1 trillion attention hours. They have like 3 billion users or so on Chrome, right? Chrome even has like 3 billion or almost 4 billion install base. So they have 4 billion people have Chrome browser, and they spend most of their time on Chrome. So if Google finds a way to monetize this attention hour, they also have like 2.5 billion YouTube users, right? YouTube is currently monetized with advertisement, which is a good business model, solid business model. But there might be a better way to monetize it. Maybe they can use the data to do some trading or something, right? I don't know, some financial analysis, or maybe they can sell some products themselves to those people. Maybe they can make $1 in profit per attention hour. Think about it. I mean, if you are working for, say, $10 an hour, right? So why does Google have 1 trillion attention hours in the first place? It would be like if you have 1 billion users, each spending 1 hour a day on your applications, you would have 365 billion attention hours in a given year. So if you have 3 billion users, each spending 1 hour, you would have 1 trillion attention hours. And they have 3 billion YouTube users almost, right? But then they also have Chrome users, they also have Android users. So it is, they even have search and all these other applications. So they might already have, I think they already have easily 1 trillion attention hours. So they have the units sold, they just don't have the profit per unit. But they could ramp it up somehow. They could find a way, like for 1 full hour of your attention, that they could extract $1 per this hour, especially in the age of AI where data is the new gold. I think it might be possible, right? And if it might be possible, they would see a profit of $1 trillion per year. So in this overview table, I actually created like some example products that would give us these scenarios, right? So I focused on the profit per unit, and then here I just by orders of magnitude, I gave some example products that might accomplish this. So so AI factories, right? We might sell 1 million AI factories in the future for 1 million profit per unit. We might sell, because this I'm not so sure, we might sell 10 million data centers making 100K per data center. I don't think we would sell 10 million data centers, but we might. With edge computing and everything, we might. But I don't think this will happen. Maybe we need some new product categories. Maybe there will be a new emerging company filling this kind of gap, right? Finding some solutions here, selling 10 million units for 100K per unit. Could also be like something like a business or something, right? Maybe if you sell 10 million businesses, each for 100K, something like this. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. So here in this category, I didn't find anything very convincing. But then in the next category, like self-driving cars, we might sell 100 million for 10K the unit, right? I think this is possible. Even humanoids might be in this category, right? But I put humanoids now in the next category. So like GPUs or humanoids, we might make $1,000 per sold unit, and we might sell 1 billion of those, right? So this would be like, would benefit Nvidia, Tesla, and all those companies making humanoid robots, right? And GPUs. So this is like this kind of range. I think this is the most likely range where the next big, like $1 trillion net profit company will come out of. Next one, we like a company selling 10 billion units, making $100 per month. So how would they, $100 per year in profit? So how would they be able to sell 10 billion units if you have only 8 billion people? They might, like with a subscription service, we could imagine an AI subscription service where you actually sell the product 12 times to a single person in a given year, right? Because they subscribe to the monthly, for a monthly fee. They actually buy the product 12 times each month. And if you have something like an AI service that is really valuable, that could like do your whole job or something, right? You might pay $100 per month and make 2K per month or something, right? So you might sell this $100 per month subscription to 1 billion people, in which case you would multiply like roughly 10 billion sales in a given year, and you make $100 in profit for this subscription service. I mean, this is very rough math. I assume that it's like a software subscription type of profit margin of like 70-80%. So in this case, it would be possible. I think this is actually in the realm of possibility. And so a company like ChatGPT or like some AI company or so might find a very, very useful AGI model. For instance, I would pay $100 per month for an AGI model, right? That could do most of my work. Definitely, I would. So it is very possible that we will see such a company. Next, for the robotaxi network, we might see 100 billion units sold in a given year. If the unit we sell is like a trip, so if you have 1 billion people using a robotaxi network, using mobility, actually wanting to buy a trip from you, they might want to buy a trip every 3 days from you, right? In this case, if you have 1 billion people purchasing a trip every 3 days, you would get 100 billion units sold in a given year. Now, if you make $10 per trip, then you would reach $1 trillion. I mean, I think this is less likely again for a robotaxi network alone to generate that much of volume and profit per unit, but in the realm of possibility. Then what we already said is like attention hours. We have a couple of companies that have huge amounts of attention. Social networks are one, Google, Alphabet is another one. There are also other companies like gaming companies, Tencent, for instance, in China. Companies like this might garner large amounts of attention hours, like 10 trillion attention hours. Google already does. And sell the attention hour like for $1 or 10 cents or something. It could be advertisement, could be pay per use, could be AI tokens or something, right? It could be the data that is valuable for some kind of third party. Could be anything, right? I mean, this is totally imaginable, I think, to extract a buck, like 10 cents to $1 of each attention hour. So I think there might be companies here at the bottom as well. So in my opinion, here at the bottom is most likely, along with this category of making 1,000 to 10,000 per unit sold and just selling 100 million to 1 billion units per year. I think we will definitely see $1 trillion profit companies in this area. Okay, so now the last question: what is such a company worth? If a company makes 1 trillion net income and we assign a 20 to 50 price earning multiple depending on the growth at this point, we would get a company market capitalization of 20 to 50 trillion. Again, compare it to the market capitalization of the largest companies today, which is like 3 trillion. 1 to 3 trillion is the largest companies, and people somehow assume this is the upper limit of possibility, but it's not the case, right? Not at all. we can imagine much larger companies. And in this case, we would get like Nvidia would do like a 7x if we assume the low end, if you assume 20 trillion market cap, so 20 PE on the 1 trillion net income, which is too conservative, right? So in this case, Nvidia would do a 7x, Tesla would do a 30x, Alphabet would do a 9x if they reach those kind of profit numbers. And if you assume this will happen in 10 years, then like for a 7x mathematically means like a 22% 10-year compound annual growth rate. So this would make your capital, if you invest your capital in a company that actually accomplishes this, you would make 22%. This is just math. It's not my opinion. And 41% in the case of a company doing 30x. In our example, this could be Tesla, no financial advice, selling humanoid robots. And we might see a 9x in 10 years for Alphabet, maybe not even increasing the attention hours they have, but just increasing the extracting more profit per attention hour. Okay, just a couple of examples to see it's really possible. Like the most likely path, in my opinion, as I indicated multiple times in this talk, is humanoid robots. So we see many humanoid robots companies creating their own products, right, in the space. Of course, we have the Tesla Optimus we already saw, but then we have all those companies that are actually paid by or sponsored by Nvidia GPUs. And yeah, so if you like this kind of stuff, then give me a like, subscribe to this channel, to the Finxter channel, subscribe to our free email newsletter. Just go to finxter.com, finxter.com, and subscribe to any of the email forms we have there. I will keep you on the right side of change. I will send you regular emails with content like this, so you can be on the right side of change, which is my main mission in life. Also check out the academy.finxter.com, academy.finxter.com, where we have many courses. Actually, the latest course is on Hugging Face to help creating the necessary skills for you to benefit from change. For instance, how to tap into the raw intelligence of the new generative AI models we see all around us, how to utilize them, how to download models, how to access models on your computer, how to integrate those models into your own applications, how to build applications in the first place that use GPTs, transformers, and all the beautiful stuff. So check out the academy.finxter.com, and yeah, you can also check out all Academy courses by becoming a channel member here on YouTube. Thanks for watching this video, and see you in the next video. Bye.